Russia and Ukraine have each announced a temporary ceasefire in their four-year-old war. But whether either declaration actually holds on the ground is another question entirely. Just hours before Ukraine's ceasefire was due to kick in, Russian attacks killed more than 20 people in cities across Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the strikes as what he called utter cynicism by Moscow. Now, to help us make sense of all of this, I'm joined by Robert B. Murrett, Professor of International Affairs at Syracuse University in New York State. It's good to have you with us, Robert. Now, before we get into things, let's take a quick look at how we got here. Russian President Vladimir Putin declared a unilateral ceasefire for May 8th and 9th, the days when Moscow celebrates Victory Day. That's its annual commemoration of the Second World War, with a major military parade in Red Square. And Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky responded by declaring an open-ended truce starting at midnight on May 6th. Now, the key detail here is that neither side agreed to the other's terms. These are two separate unilateral declarations and not a joint ceasefire. So bringing in Robert Murrett, as I mentioned, Professor of International Studies at Syracuse University. Two ceasefires declared independently with attacks continuing right up to the deadline. What do you think this actually tells us about where both sides are standing right now?
Tommy, great question. I would say it probably tells us two things. The first thing it tells us is that Russia is very interested in having some kind of commemoration for their May uh, events that they do every year at this time, and one that will be immune from any kind of attacks from Ukraine, and also provide, I think importantly, an opportunity for the leadership to actually make a public appearance, which both all of the leaders, including Vladimir Putin, have been very, very reluctant to do lately because of concerns about their security. I think on the Ukrainian side, it also, exhibits their willingness to engage in a ceasefire that could take more time, potentially be extended beyond the periods that they're talking about already, and to freeze the front lines of the battlefield from where they are now, in spite of the fact that the Ukrainians have actually had some success on the battlefield over the last several weeks and months, really.
So you're saying in Putin's case, this is symbolism rather than an actual gesture towards peace?
I would say so. I think they just want to be able to have some kind of public gathering. As you know, the security situation for Vladimir Putin, according to many press accounts, has deteriorated fairly dramatically in the last 3 or 4 months. I'm not sure if that's a domestic opposition or concerns about any attacks that may be mounted by Ukraine as they have against some other senior Russian officials. But I think they just want to be able to get through this and have some kind of commemoration for the armistice day that existed after World War II.
And what's your assessment of President Zelensky's own declaration of an open-ended truce?
I think I think a lot of us, we were in his position, we tried the same thing, that is to have a ceasefire that could potentially be extended beyond the time that it is now, and one that probably has better chances of being extended on the Russian side than it has in previous times, because the situation is less favorable for Russia now than it has been in probably a couple of years, quite frankly, based upon losses they've taken on the battlefield. The horrific casualties they continue to take, thousands and thousands every month, and just the continued impact, notwithstanding what's going on in the Middle East right now, of their economy and the concerns that they've got in terms of continuing to mount a credible military operation against Ukraine because of all the extended measures they're having to take, to include bringing in mercenaries and fighters from so many different countries just to maintain the fight there.
Hmm. Now, many on both sides are doubtful that these ceasefires will lead anywhere. Let's listen to a couple of people on both sides, first in Kiev and then in Moscow, to what they're saying about the gestures.
Putin never keeps his word and won't start now. He won't let us have a normal life. There will be provocation from Russia. They'll try to make it look like the Ukrainians did it.
I think the ceasefire will be violated. I'm sure of it, but we will repel it and everything will be fine. We won't allow anything to reach here.
Now, Robert, at what point, if ever, does a temporary pause become the foundation for something more lasting?
Well, if we're fortunate, and it's hard to be optimistic about some of these things. It may be continued indefinitely. That's the hope, just based upon the largely static position we've had on the battlefield for so many times. But on the other hand, the fighting could continue apace immediately after the two periods that either the Ukrainian or the Russian side has had here. And the other thing is there's some minor chance, I wouldn't put too much stock in it, but just from a military standpoint, that either Russia or Ukraine could take advantage of cessation of hostilities for just a few days to shift some of their assets on the front lines. Although I think the transparent battlefield that exists, certainly from the Ukrainian perspective, will certainly mitigate against that.
Russia's demands for broader peace don't seem to have changed. Still the full Ukrainian withdrawal from the Donbass, no Western military ties, what some would see as demands for capitulation. So is there any realistic diplomatic off-ramp here, or are we essentially locked in?
I think we're locked in for the time being, and until the cost-imposing strategy that is placed on Russia is perceived by the leadership in the Kremlin as far more serious than it is currently. There's no reason why the Ukrainians should accept those conditions. I think their continued fundamental deterrence that they've got on the battlefield, their success that they've had, as we alluded to, which seems to be trending very much in their direction. The horrific casualties they're able to inflict on the Russian forces, which is just a tragedy for the Russian people and certainly for the Russian army, continue to apace. So it's difficult to see unless there is some shift in terms of the posture by the Kremlin and their leadership, which does seem to be more vulnerable now than they've been at some time. I don't see any reason why there is too much hope for any cessation of hostilities anytime soon.
And that's from the Russian side. I'm just wondering, is there anything from the Ukrainian side that could lead to genuine negotiations?
I think they're already negotiating genuinely, but I don't see any reason why they should give all parts of the 4 additional provinces that Russia has already claimed, but is not occupying in the Donbass. I don't see any reason why Ukrainians should accept a demand from Russia that they not have any engagement or any kind of what I'll describe as force protection arrangements with other European countries or Canada or the United States or any other allies around the world. I certainly see no reason why they should capitulate to Russia at this point and agree to particularly see the very well-developed defensive positions they have in the Donbass right now, which have come at some cost to them. And if the Russians were to try to take them on the battlefield, would be very much cost imposing for the Russians, and I don't see that in the Ukrainian interest.
Professor Robert Murrett, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Enjoyed it, Tomi. Have a good evening.
And what do you think? Give us your thoughts in the comments. I'm Tomi Oladipo. See you again soon.